Is the job market cooling? That's the question that is really on the top of minds for most labor economists in terms of analyzing job market data that's just come out this week. And it's also the premise of a really interesting article in the Wall Street Journal published today that looks at different data and different charts around quit rates and job openings and really trying to diagnose what's happening in the job market at the moment. And it's interesting because the article talks about, well, the title of the article is Americans have quitting their jobs. And you could probably, and there's data to support that. So if you look at the quits rate, which is the number of resignations as a share of total employment, we're averaging around 2.5% since about March. It's the early July right now. And that's down from, say, April of 22, where it was at around 3%. And we're only a little bit higher than pre-pandemic levels at 2.5% right now. So you can say, okay, well, the furor and kind of the frenzy that was happening around the Great Resignation, think early COVID, early pandemic, that's probably abated. That's true. But if you look around anywhere, it seems like, for me at least, around where I live and the individuals and friends that I text with all the time, we're always saying, like, look, another place that has a for hire sign. It seems like there's this kind of strange disconnect between what feels like full levels of employment. I know unemployment rate is hovering around 3.5, 3.6, 3.7%. And the need, the demand for workers that we're seeing in the private sector. And so when we think about kind of everything that's going on, so if since about a year ago, we've seen the U.S. Federal Reserve raise rates. And to do that, what they're trying to do is they're trying to bring up the cost of money, should bring back inflation slightly. But in order for inflation to fall, or for it to not be so sticky, what you need is the unemployment rate to tick up a little bit. You need less money in the system, so to speak, because you need more money chasing, or you need less money chasing more goods, right? You need to kind of flip the script a little bit on what's been happening in terms of inflation. And when you see something like 1.6, 1.7 open jobs for every worker in the United States, you have this thing that, makes it very difficult to say, okay, well, we're in a healthy state in terms of the labor market in the U.S. So that's kind of like, we'll use that as an overview for the rest of the talking points in this recording. And what I wanted to talk about was kind of reasons why the Wall Street Journal and other labor economists are looking at the workforce and saying, okay, well, quitting is abated. And it's probably true. And, the easy kind of gut instinct is to say, okay, well, it's got to be a function of inflation. As things get more costly, people are going to, our pocketbooks get a little bit more stretched, and we're not going to want to move around as much. We're not going to absorb that risk, the kind of career risk of moving around too much. There is data, of course, that shows that people who've jumped around a little bit have probably benefited a little bit more than people who have stayed loyal during the Great Resignation in the last couple of years. But even that data I've seen lately is abating as well, to where either that delta is non-existent or loyalty is even paid off. And so what we're seeing, I think, now is the water, like the choppy seas, becoming a little bit more calm. And I think it speaks to human psychology a little bit, to where I think our default state as human beings is to want stability, and we lean on ease, right? We lean on easiness, we lean on laziness even. But what that points to, I think, more fundamentally, is this desire for stability in our lives. And we can only take so much friction and movement and all these things in terms of chasing different things. So when the media is covering the Great Resignation, and it seems like everybody around you is changing jobs and switching jobs and quitting their job and moving somewhere else, and I think what you get is that mob mentality. and which catalyzes people to move, and you start to get this kind of herd effect. I think that was a lot of what was happening in the Great Resignation. It wasn't that people were upset with what they were doing. It wasn't that we needed more work-life balance. It wasn't that we needed to do something that was more meaningful, in the grand scheme of things. What it was a little bit of FOMO. And when the media starts publishing articles that say, okay, well, you should definitely have FOMO because everybody that's moving around is starting to see more pay and different and this and that, then it becomes, okay, well, I've definitely got to move then. And I think what's happening now is you're starting to see, well, when you pull the air out of the balloon a little bit and you just let things simmer for a little while, so you just kind of how long can you be reporting in the media? When I speak about the media, how long can you be reporting on the Great Resignation for before it gets a little bit dull and boring? And I think that's a lot of what's happening, because the underlying dynamics of what was causing, or what the Great Resignation, what we were pointing to in terms of data that supported the Great Resignation, is still there, right? We still got 1.5 jobs per every job openings for every worker in the U.S. We still have sticky inflation. We've still got all these underlying factors. We've still got full employment for the most part, right? At 3.7% unemployment, 3.6, whatever it is today. So that hasn't changed. So, which points to, okay, well, like, what is it actually that was causing all of this? And I think my intuition says that it was a little bit of mob mentality. It was a little bit of herd mentality, and that's all gone away now, because human beings typically, over the long term, I think, skew towards wanting stability, or, frenzy is tiring. Let's call it that. And I think we've gotten over that to where, this is kind of the normal state. I think there are other things are at play, of course, too. So in the frenzy of the Great Resignation, you have companies boosting pay, you have, bumping salaries, bumping bonuses, bumping benefits. And I think maybe we've reached this kind of an equilibrium point, or kind of a happy medium, to where things they look a little bit better than they were 2 years ago. And maybe that's why people are staying longer. That could be true. Maybe people have more vacation days. That might be true. But everything in terms of clients that we work with at Daggerfins point to, the underlying issues around workforces are still there, right? Nothing's really changed that much in the last 2 years. It's just the frenzy around the Great Resignation isn't as in your face. And so, yep, Americans have quitting their jobs, sure. And I've kind of beat the dead horse here in terms of why I think that is the case, more so than any of the underlying, data or the things that the media will report and say that is the reason why. I think it's just people just got tired of it all, and we're just kind of defaulting to the way that human beings are, which is less frenzy, less chaos, more stability, and that's kind of where we are, I guess. And to end it, I'll add this too, which is, I think in an ideal world, right, we all want to be doing what we want to be able to make money doing our passion, and we want to be able to do all these things where our work aligns with what we love to do most. But there aren't that many of that job around, and to think that we've shuffled the mahjong pieces on the table to where everybody now post Great Resignation is doing exactly what they want to do, I think that's a fallacy. There's no way that that's true. And so if you're saying, okay, well, Americans have quitting their jobs, it's not that everybody's landed in a position that absolutely they love, right? They've chased something and they've stopped chasing. And I think that's what we're seeing more than anything else at the moment.